Today it's baby backs versus spare ribs on the Lone Star Grills. Let's get cooking here on Texas 2.5 Barbecue. Alright, we're going to be doing 2 racks of baby backs today and 1 big rack of spares. And we're going to do them 3 different ways. On this first rack, I'm going to start off with some bootleg Prohibition pig rub made right here in Minnesota. Just get that all evened out, nice even coat. For my second layer on these, we're going with the Suckle Busters Texas Pecan Rub, which is an awesome sweet rub. I used a whole bunch of it, almost this whole bottle, in my brisket video recently, and it turned out really nice. It has an immediately sweet smell coming off of it, and I like to have a lot of sweet on my pork ribs. Alright, for our second rack of baby backs, we're going to go down with Cookenbock Original Seasoning. This and the Texas Pecan Rub were both sent out to me by TexasFood.com to try, and I appreciate that. And the Prohibition Pig Rub was brought to me by BootlegMeat.com to try as well. Again, I'm going to add just a little bit of sweet on top of that because I always like to have just a little hint of sweet. Alright, I'll be honest, I like more than a little hint of sweet on my pork ribs. I like a lot of sweet on my pork ribs. Alright, let's hit the back side of these. These are our Prohibition Pig Rub ribs. I do not remove membrane. I sort of like the texture of the membrane, honestly. It reminds me a little bit of like a natural casing hot dog. And I enjoy that. So I hardly ever remove the membrane. I'm not a big competition guy, so... Alright, let's do the back side of our Cookenbock. Finish off our Texas Pecan, the last of that bottle. Now at the end, at the very end, if I remember, I am going to come back after we've wrapped these and unwrapped them again to brush some sauce on it and finish them at the end. If I remember, I'm going to put some more of this maple spice rub on to give them even more sweet right at the end of the cook. But for now, that little bit of Texas Pecan that I put on them is enough sweet to get us started. Let's work on our spare ribs. Alright, I went back and forth on whether or not to take the rib tips off and to make these what's called a St. Louis cut, where you would just have right through here all of your rib bones that are running this way. This strip of meat across the top is called rib tips. You can cut it right along this line all the way across. There's a big bone right here. And this one feels pretty tender all the way across, but there's also a tough line of cartilage that runs right here horizontally. So most guys will just cut that all right off before they cook. Honestly, I'm going to leave it on today because I want this to cook as evenly as possible. I don't want to cook this little strip of meat separately, and I certainly don't want to waste it. I normally don't do very much trimming on my ribs at all, but I'm going to take this. This is an obvious huge hunk of fat that has no meat on it. That's just gonna, it's gonna be disguised by the rub and the bark, and somebody's gonna bite into that thinking they're getting a nice big piece of meat, and that'll just be fat. So I won't worry about the rest of that. Again, I don't really fret too much about trimming things up. Today on these, I'm gonna be using one of my newer favorites, Plowboy's Yardbird. Their little slogan is created for chicken but made for pork, and I've primarily been using it on pork. I did try it on chicken early on when I first bought it, but just like their slogan says, I actually do prefer it on on pork. To me, it complements pork a little better than it did the chicken that we had it on. So I'm going to get a good layer of that down. And since I'm out of Texas pecan, I'm going to go ahead and put just a touch of this Annie Moo Moo's maple spice rub on this one now. And again, if I remember, I'll do a little bit more at the end. I'm going to go pretty light with it because I don't want these to burn. But I do want to kick that Yardbird up to be a little bit sweeter. It's not a pure sweet rub. It's not intended to be. It's just a traditional sweet and savory pork rub. But again, I like my ribs usually to be a little bit sweeter. And just like with the baby backs, I will not be taking off the membrane. Now I'm going to go lighter on the backside with the rub anyways, where the membrane is, because I don't want to just waste rub. But some of that flavor will get through, some of it will stay on, and so I don't want to completely ignore the back even though I leave the membrane on. The other benefit of doing it this way, I think, is it gives you two different flavor profiles on your ribs. The bottom and the top don't taste exactly the same. So if you eat your rib right side up, which means the bone side is going to be hitting your tongue first, there's actually, I think, an improved meat and smoke intensity and flavor that hits you before the rub. And then once you start chewing it, that heavy rub layer from the top of the rib gets incorporated into your taste buds, and then you have sort of a secondary taste experience. A lot of guys really, for competition, really rub and sauce heavy top and back, and they always talk about wanting that judge, that one bite to be perfect. To me, the perfect bite has both of those qualities. It has the high, it lets the meat and the smoke shine through on the backside, and then once they start chewing, it incorporates that savory and sweet rub and sauce from the top side, and so you actually get two different experiences in one bite. To me, that's how I would compete if I was a competition guy. But I'm weird. All right, here we go. We got our Prohibition pig, our Cookenbock, and our Yardbird. Always nice to keep a dirty old t-shirt around for wiping your smoker down, cleaning your grates off after you've scrubbed them with your brush. Wiping your shelf off. That baby gets seasoned and oily, and every time I wipe down my smoker with it, I'm sort of re-oiling it. But it's also nice for pushing in hot grates, getting us closed down, and we're off and cooking. That's a beautiful picture. All right, we're 2 hours in. We got her up to temp. Most of that time we've been running hot and fast, which is my preferred method. I have not moved the ribs. I've checked on them once or twice. We're getting really nice color. Anyhow, it's time to wrap, and I'm going to be finishing these 3 different ways, so check this out. All right, I already put down my margarine and my brown sugar. You've seen tons of people do that. You don't need to see me do that. But what I'm going to do next is get that off. And my spare ribs here, I'm going to put down some apple butter on these bad boys. Remember, this is the top. I'm going to put the apple butter on them. I'm going to flip them over down into that butter and brown sugar. So they're going to get all 3 of those treatments. So this apple butter will just be being added to the margarine and the brown sugar that's already down there. And it doesn't have to be precise or perfect. It'll all get married together once these bad boys get upside down. I already got that margarine and that brown sugar melting. Apple butter. I'll probably leave these wrapped for an hour, maybe 90 minutes. We'll get some pullback, we'll get some tenderizing happening. And then we will unwrap them for the last 30 minutes to an hour. And put some sauce on. I'll bring you back for that. Alright, for our first set of baby backs, you can see I've got my brown sugar and margarine laid down. For this set, I'm going to go with a little bit of an Asian flair. This is Hoisin sauce, which is a sweet soy sauce. Just a Just some dabs of that. It's strong stuff. You don't need a ton. Then I'm going with some sweet chili sauce. One of my favorite sauces from the takeout Chinese and Thai places. Again, not a ton of it. And this isn't spicy like tiger sauce, but it is still very, very good. I'm gonna do the same treatment to the back side. I'll bring you back for the third rack. All right, now for our third rack, we're gonna do something really crazy. Have y'all seen this yet? Vintage 1869 recipe Heinz ketchup. Smoky, made from ripe tomatoes, vinegar, salt, sugar, onion, garlic, and spices. If that doesn't sound like barbecue, I don't know what does. I tasted some of this on my finger. One of our local discount grocery places had these for $1 a bottle. I picked up 2 just in case it was good. And it is good. I might go back for 5 more. But to give it a little bit of kick, a little bit of punch, we're going to go down with some Frank's Buffalo. Give it a little bit of a spicy flair. Go ahead and empty that bottle. We won't have any for the backside, but that's okay. I got something special planned for these when it's time to open them back up again. All right, everybody. It's time to unwrap and sauce. Now, remember, these ribs were on for about 2 hours, 2 hours and 15 minutes before we wrapped. They've been wrapped for about an hour and a half. I haven't touched them. And when I just pulled these spare ribs out, oh buddy, did they feel tender. They were bending over, flopping, and look at that incredible juice. Wow. Oh my, the bone's pulling through right there. We got some good pullback on our bones all the way across. Of course, you're not going to have any pullback on this side because we did not St. Louis trim these. Oh, baby. Oh. Now, I'm not going to worry about dumping any of that juice out right now while it's super hot. All I'm going to do is sauce. And for this, and I know what you're going to think, but just calm down. For this, I'm using Sweet Baby Ray's, their original barbecue sauce. You know I use a lot of designer rubs and sauces. But every once in a while, a guy's got to cheat a little bit. I hate to tell you, but I eat Taco Bell too sometimes. Another cheat, if you forget to bring your basting brush out with you when it's time to sauce, wadded up paper towel will do the trick. Just don't wipe it hard. You don't want to wipe off your rub or anything like that. But if you're just dabbing at it, especially once this paper towel has gotten a little bit softened up in the juices and in the sauce, it will not hurt your meat. You just want to drag it all around. Get a nice glaze. Go right back on the Lone Star with it and let this tack up for 30 minutes or so, maybe an hour, we'll see. In case you're wondering, you just leave it right in that tin foil. You've seen other guys do this. Just roll the sides down to make them stronger. I've got 2 or 3 layers of heavy-duty tin foil here, so we should be good to go. Just make yourself a little boat. Put them right back on the smoker. All right, I believe these here were our spicy ribs that I had put the ketchup, that 1869 recipe ketchup, and the the buffalo sauce on. I am not going to sauce these. What I'm going to do to these, and I forgot to add, remember I said I was going to add this to all of them. I forgot to do that on the spare ribs. But we're going to add a little bit of sweet to keep that spicy theme going. I'm going to be using a little bit of this Slap Your Mama Cajun rub. This is the first time I've used this. A buddy of mine bought me this when he was down in New Orleans a little while ago. And I tasted it on my finger a few minutes ago and it tasted good. I'm a wimp. And this was spicy, but it wasn't too hot for me. This is basically an SPG with just a little bit of red pepper added to it. All it has in it is salt, red pepper, black pepper, and garlic. So we're going to leave that just like this. Roll down. Put this right back on the smoker. without any extra sauce added to it. And these are going to be our spicy ribs. Our little bit of buffalo, a little bit of Cajun. All right, this here is our third rack. I believe these were our Asian ribs. Anyhow, I told you sometimes I use designer sauces. Calm down. We got Kansas City's own Gates barbecue sauce, sweet and mild. Had this for the first time a couple weeks ago. Really good stuff. A little bit thinner, but a good sweet and savory barbecue sauce. And right back onto the pit. I'll bring you back when it's time to test. And in case you're wondering, I did make sure, I just went back and sprinkled some Annie Moo Moo's maple on the other two racks to make sure everybody had some. Alright, it's been about 45 minutes. I've sort of let my fire die down since I'm getting ready to pull these. But look at the beautiful color on those spare ribs. You can see that maple spice rub that I put on the top at the end. Let me grab a glove. Oh baby. That's the one I put the spice rub on, I think before I sauced it. That's the one with that Prohibition pig rub. You can tell because it has the large whole spices on it. Some fennel and some other things. This one I believe is the other one that I had forgotten to put the maple rub on first, and you can see it right on top there. But man, that is a beautiful set. 3 racks of ribs. Let's get them inside and let's have a taste. Alright y'all, it's time. Let's get a taste of these beauties. Just take a look at these bad boys. They are looking awesome. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these open, take a rib out of each one of these 3, and then I'll bring you up to eye level and you can see the taste test. First off, let's try to get these, I think my line of cartilage is right here. I'm trying to see if I can cut just below that all the way across, if it'll let me take these tips off nice and easy like without giving me much trouble. And if it does, then I'll show it on video. Look at that. Now there's your St. Louis cut ribs. Again, for competition, we would have squared up the ends and we would have just presented some ribs from the middle here that look the best. This is a pretty straight rack. You can see the bones are just a little bit cockeyed, but not too bad. I'm going to get that out of the way and just somewhere right here in the middle. Oh, I see. We still have a little bit of that cartilage running across the tops. So, alright, I think we finally got it figured out. I think there was just a little more bone curve there than I thought there was. We flip these all back over. Give you a nice look at one of these babies. Nice, very light pink smoke ring from that cherry all the way around. Looks delicious. This first rack of baby backs, these babies turned out really nice. They bunched up nice and fat across the middle right there. Got nice and tall for me. Ton of meat on those babies. Flexible. Looking real good. Alright, let's just cut one out of there for sake of time. Show you that again. That cherry gives, this cherry I'm using is really good stuff. It gives a nice, really light smoke ring all the way around. Beautiful cherry colored smoke ring. Alright, let's get into this third rack. Good flex on it, but not breaking. Part of the reason for that is because I leave the membrane on, which gives it that nice texture that I like. A little too close to the bone on that one. I'll cut 2 just in case. Same thing. Smoke ring going almost all the way through on that one. Nice and pink and light. Super wet rib. Alright, let's taste these babies. Part of why I'm doing this is I want to taste spare ribs back to back with baby back ribs. I've never done that before. it sort of fascinates me, just like I did, you know, back in February when I did the dry aged beef video and I ate ribeye with New York strips side by side, just wanting to know what the differences were between those two pieces of meat. You hear guys talk about the differences between spares and baby backs all the time on their channels, but I've never tasted them back to back before. And so I know you're probably thinking, you put all the stuff on them, how are you going to tell a difference? Maybe I won't be able to. I wanted to do the ribs up fancy this time. I did not want to go just SPG on them. I wanted to finish them like I prefer to finish them, with sauces and sweet things. And if a difference shines through, I'll tell you what it is. And if it doesn't, well, we'll save that plain rib test for another day. But I wanted all three of these racks to be sauced and wrapped and all the whole 9 yards. So anyhow, let's get down to business. Let's start with this nice meaty spare rib. Perfect bite. So tender. So good. Man. Before I turned the camera on, I was bending over smelling these ribs. And they had such an awesome smoky essence. That wood I'm using. To me, there is no way that membrane is a problem. I know some people are finicky about it. I didn't even notice it was there just now. I just looked at it and saw it, and that's what reminded me to say something. These are wonderful, mild, sweet. I mean, if that's the only rack I had done today, I would scarf that thing down. No complaints. But that is delicious. Just a mild, beautiful pork flavor. Big and meaty, juicy. Let's try that second rack, the one that looked a little drier on the top. I'll try to tell you what it is after I taste it. Again, I don't remember if this is the buffalo one. Or if this is the one that I wrapped with the Asian sauces, but I'll try to tell you. Hold on. That one is a lot more rub-centric. Without that apple butter on there, that rub shines through big time. I'm getting just a touch of spice, just a touch of heat, but not in my mouth at all, just on the top of my throat back there. It's still juicy from those sauces, but the rub definitely dominates on this one, and it's delicious. Let's try the third one and see if I can differentiate it. This third one is the one that I put the Prohibition pig rub on, and I can easily identify that pig rub because of those big spices. So if we rewind the tape and remember which one I put that rub on, then you'll know which of these sauce combos was on this one. Little bit different flavor. But both of these are delicious, juicy. They're not falling off the bone. They got perfect bite. The Prohibition pig rub really comes through on this one. I can taste those spices. I'm definitely, again, it's a little different than a traditional barbecue rub because it has those big chunks and those big whole spices in it that I haven't seen in a lot of other barbecue rubs. And I can definitely taste those. I can sense those there, and they give it a little bit of, I don't know what the right word is, like an earthier flavor than a normal barbecue rub. It's not unpleasant at all. It's just different. It's like, oh, this is a different flavor than your standard Yardbird or Killer Hogs or whatever you're using. And I'm eating so much of this because I'm about to go back and take a bite of that spare rib and see if I can notice any difference. This third set was a little bit more dry than the others. A little bit less moist. A little bit less tender. Still very good. Definitely just got some fennel from that Prohibition pig rub. You can always tell when you get some fennel in your mouth. Honestly, the difference that I sense is just in the sauces. This spare rib, I can't tell a big difference in the meat itself between the spare rib and the baby backs. I'll keep going on this spare and see if that changes. Yeah, that is a little bit different. I think for me on this particular cook, and I don't know if it's always like this or not, to me I prefer the spare rib. To me it's a little bit fattier and a little bit juicier. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, man, are you nuts? Why'd you do all of that stuff? You went full throttle on these ribs. You put like 17 different things on it. It's so complicated. You can't even remember what you put on and what the differences are in the taste. Well, here's a lesson for you. We do not do things halfway around here at Texas 2.5 Barbecue. Smoke on. I cannot believe I just did that. Glad I had a sharp knife.